Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today is a compilation of r/AmIOverreacting for you all. Basically, this is just a bunch of older videos put together into one nice neat little package so you can sit back and watch them for like an hour with no interruptions. Also, don't forget this entire channel is pretty much brought to you by GamerSupps. Use code Oz at checkout for 10% off. They've got new flavors and caffeine-free flavors and lots of other stuff for you to check out and try, including clothing, which is actually 100% worth it. It's the softest shirt I own. I'm not even joking. And without further ado, let's just jump right into the compilation. Efficient Designer 55. Am I overreacting for feeling uncomfortable that my grandparents paid for their other grandkids' dinner but not mine? To preface this, I don't think I'm entitled to anything. It was just uncomfortable to me that one of us got something that the other didn't. I was talking to my grandparents the other day and they invited me and my husband out to dinner when they got to my city, along with my cousin and his wife who also live here. The next day they messaged me saying they may not have time to meet with me, but they will still see my cousin. I didn't take any offense to it, I just told them to have fun and left it at there. They responded back saying that they actually think they may be able to make it work and asked me for recommendations on a place that has ribs. Now, I don't really eat ribs, so I did some Google searching and came up with a place, and we settled the conversation there with a plan to meet up the next day. Around 6, they messaged me that they had just landed in town and were ready to meet up for dinner, so I hopped in my car and headed out with my husband. We're heading inside, and my husband said that he heard my grandpa whisper to my cousin not to worry about paying for anything, so my husband texted me asking if the same goes for us, and I said I hadn't heard anything about it, but when the waiter came, my grandma told the waiter that they're covering them. I was a bit confused because they were the ones to invite us out, and I originally told them that I just wanted to show them my garden. I also found out over the course of dinner that my cousin was the one who requested ribs, and my grandparents had been there long enough to put my cousin's baby daughter down to sleep. It was just uncomfortable, really. Ah, there it is. Okay, I figured it out. Hold on. My grandparents knew that we had just come home from visiting my parents out of state, and we've been having a hard time already due to some medical issues on my end, but I just sat there listening to my cousin talk about how well he is sitting financially while his bill gets covered and mine doesn't. Mostly I was just upset with myself for letting my pride get in the way and opting to go to a place that sets me back financially instead of telling them that I just couldn't do it right now, on top of the sting of blatant favoritism. I didn't make a stink at all, I just paid and went home. Anyways, when I went home I told my mom about this and she was immediately pissed. She texted my grandpa to tell him that this is the last straw and his blatant favoritism has reached a new low and he's no longer invited to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. It turned into a much bigger thing. She told my uncle and he's also angry at my grandparents now too. I'm just gaslighting myself a bit. Yes, I'm uncomfortable, but I didn't want it to be a huge deal. Maybe it isn't one at all. My pride is the problem. I could have just said that I can't afford the prices and got something small or not one at all. Honestly, I think you're underreacting with this, and I think that you actually handled this very maturely. It seems that your family definitely has something else to say about it, but I realized this while reading it. The reason why your cousins are the favorite is because they gave them a great-grandchild. That's the reason why. It's just as simple as that. They're playing with blatant favoritism because of that factor, which fucking sucks. Honestly, they should be ashamed of themselves. But my question comes, did you ever at any point tell them that you did not want to have kids? Because that might also be a part of it, is that's why they're playing favorites. No like shade onto you or anything like that. I'm just trying to figure out like possible reasons for it, and that's the most likely one in my head. Yeah, in my opinion, you actually underreacted, and you did absolutely nothing wrong. Admirable Toe 4319. Am I overreacting for telling my girlfriend she treats me more like a servant rather than a partner? I've been dating my girlfriend for a short while, about a month and a half. I feel like the relationship is basically one-sided as I contribute a lot more than she has. For example, when we first started dating, she mentioned that her washer broke. I came over and took a look at it, decided to watch a YouTube video and figured it out. Took me like 5 minutes. Then she wanted me to help her with a car. She said that she couldn't turn very well, so I came over and replaced a hose on her power steering pump. She once called me at midnight and told me she had a flat tire and was at the gas station. I told her to buy a can of Fix-A-Flat and use it. She called me a few minutes later and said that she couldn't figure it out. I drove to the gas station and put this shit in her tire, LOL. The icing on the cake is the way she was describing our relationship to her friend. She was talking about how good I was to her, but also said that's why she keeps a man around. Maybe this was a compliment, but I did not take it as such. I don't mind fixing things and doing stuff for my girlfriend, but lately it seems more like a request than offer. Just the other day, she talked about doing her flower beds and wanted to know my schedule so I could help. Okay, I need more information here. First of all, if you don't like it, you can always leave the relationship, and sometimes that is the healthiest option in a situation like this. Second thing is, do you ask her for help, and does she help you? Does she thank you for that help, or does it almost seem like it's expected? You gotta have a conversation about that. It also really depends on your current relationship dynamic, because honestly, she could have just been joking around with her friend like, yeah, you know, that's just how it is. That's why I keep a man around. Or it could have been more sinister than that. There's no way for me to know. But if you're not happy, then buddy, you gotta get out of there. There is also the fact that maybe just in the process of her being selfish about it, she just finds it really hot that you're able to help her out with a bunch of stuff. And doesn't realize that it's hurting you in the process, and she just really likes it when you rescue her. It's, I don't know. It depends on what she does for you in return. That's the biggest part of it. Because if it's entirely one-sided, then buddy, you should probably look at getting a different relationship or leaving this one for the time being. But if you ask her for things and she reciprocates that, then I don't know, man. I would say the best honest-to-God litmus test is to ask her for help with something that she would actually be good at. If she refuses to help, that's your answer and get the hell out of there. Dear Establishment 952, am I overreacting for wanting to report this man to his employer? My daughter, 6, was involved in an interaction with an adult this morning that made me uncomfortable. I, 28 female, was originally planning on informing the adult's employer, but my wife and a few other family members say that it's too far and I'm overreacting. I really love some outside opinions. This morning, while at the school bus stop with my daughter, the garbage truck turned onto the street and stopped at the first house. The man on the back started emptying cans, and the driver, 50s male, stayed seated like they usually do. My daughter, 6, waved to the driver, then turned back to me and started talking. The driver tried to get her attention by saying, "Hey, sweetie," but she wasn't responding. So after he pulled up to the next house, he hopped out of the truck and started helping the other guy empty the cans. I've never seen this happen in my area. Even the guy from the back said to the driver, "Dude, I'm good. Be ready to drive so we can move on." The driver, while helping, keeps calling to my daughter even though I said, "She's shy and doesn't want to talk," but he continued. Eventually, she turns around and waves again. He then goes, "Hello, beautiful. I just wanted to tell you how pretty your hair is up like that." He tried to approach us, but my daughter is pretty shy and ran to hug my legs behind me. He rolled his eyes and said, "What? It's a compliment," then got in his truck and drove off. When he swung back to do the other side, he again started yelling for her and calling her beautiful. The whole thing made me uneasy and felt inappropriate, and my immediate thought was to contact municipal waste management and complain. But my wife and mother both say it's not that big of a deal, and even if he was being weird, it's harmless. It just doesn't feel harmless to me. It feels very strange. I feel like I owe it to my daughter to stick up to this guy. I'd really love some outside opinions. If this happened to your daughter, would you think it was creepy and potentially unsafe? Would contacting his employer be too far? Well, the first sign is that his coworker found this to be odd behavior, that he was actually trying to get out of the truck and do work and not just drive it, so that's kind of a first red flag. But here's my fear. If you do report it, which I think you are warranted in not overreacting for at least filing a complaint, my worry is he'll be able to easily figure out who the complaint was from, even if it is anonymous, and because he is the trash man and he knows the general area, you might be able to see where I'm going with this. That's my concern. Okay, I know that landscapers are different than trash people, and this is a bit of a stretch, but back when I was first moving into my home, my neighbors hired landscapers. The landscapers did not give a shit about the surrounding neighbors. They flooded the street, they blocked my driveway, they dumped piles of rocks and dirt in front of my driveway to the point where I couldn't get out on certain days, and I had tried asking them hey, can you guys not do this so I can get out, but they just sort of shrugged it off, using the excuse of, I didn't run a business, so I didn't know how difficult this was. So I took photos, and in my frustration, I left a 1-star review and posted photos of what they had been doing. Flooding the street, dumping dirt in front of my driveway, parking in front of my driveway, causing just a general mess, being just general assholes when I asked them politely not to park in front of my driveway or dump things in front of my driveway. And 5 minutes later, he shows up to my house, pounding on the door and demanding that I change it to a 5-star review. And the dude was pissed. Veins coming out of his forehead pissed. Face red, whole 9 yards. It was actually pretty scary. And that's my concern, is that you never know what someone might end up doing in the long run. Strange Cork Charm. Am I overreacting for breaking up with my girlfriend after she went camping with 2 other men? Too long didn't read, now out-of-state girlfriend went camping with 2 other guys and another girl for 2 days. I met one of the guys, definitely don't trust him. Am I wrong for not wanting to be in the relationship anymore? My girlfriend, 22, and I, 27, have been together for 2 years. When we first met, before we got in a relationship, she told me she wanted to move out of state. Her reasons were very valid. However, I wasn't looking to move yet since I have obligations to tend to for at least a couple more years. The first year and a half were great. We had our ups and downs, we went through a lot together, but boy did we form a bond as a resort. Now, we have been long distance for a year and a half, and boy is it hard. Not gonna lie, it's taking quite a toll on me. However, I love this woman. I've seen her 3 times in the past year and a half, each time for 3 to 4 days. I'm putting my ducks in a row in order to move there in about a year. She lives there now, and of course she has to make friends, etc. She made some friends playing volleyball at the park, and there's this one particular guy, Mike, 24, who wants to be her mentor for the job she does. He's legit. However, when I first met him, he was almost caught off guard that she had a boyfriend. Something about how he said, "Oh, cool," when she introduced us. I don't know. Their interaction together was weird. I never want to be that kind of boyfriend, so I shelved it in my mind and moved on. Now, she told me she's going camping with some volleyball people. 2 guys and her. One of them is Mike. She could see it on my face that I was uncomfortable with it, but we got distracted with something else and didn't talk about it. She came back a few days later and told me she convinced one of her girlfriends to come with her, so each are gonna sleep in their respective cars. It's not about the camp, I'm just not liking this Mike guy. I can tell her that, but I can't tell her what to do or not to do. They're back from camp now. I'm honestly unhappy about this. Perhaps I'm jealous and frustrated because I can't be there. These guys even paid for everything. Jet skis. She's never been on a jet ski and we were gonna do that together. Paddle boards. The boat they spent the whole day on. I know her financial situation, so that's how I know they paid for everything. I don't know. I feel like she probably wouldn't like it if I did that with 2 other women. Am I overreacting for wanting to end the relationship? Okay, look, I'm sorry, dude, but yeah, you probably should just end the relationship because chances are this was a double date. Mike didn't know you even existed. And I doubt that a guy was paying for jet skis, camping equipment, and all that stuff out of the kindness of his heart. All right, look, most guys, if they're gonna be buying something for a girl and it's like, 2 guys and 2 girls and, they're out in the woods and having a good time, yeah, dude, you gotta... I commend you for underreacting in this situation and putting an end to the relationship because I actually think you're probably doing the mature thing here. But I'm sorry, man, but I think she's fucking Mike, alright? I'm gonna be honest with you. That's my personal thought. I might be wrong, but I think she's seeing Mike behind your back. I really want some comment input on this because everything points to what my conclusion is, but that would really suck for OP here. Like, that would be devastating. Am I overreacting for considering breaking up over a celebrity crush? Hear me out with this one. Yesterday, the topic of celebrity crushes came up with me, 22 male, and my girlfriend, 23 female of 10 months. A moderately known indie band leader who she follows recently got into a relationship. Yesterday, my girlfriend said something along the lines of, "Darn, and I could have shot my shot since he liked my post and his girl is ethnic." My girlfriend is Asian. I understand celebrity crushes being no real threat, but this comment rubbed me the wrong way, so I asked, so, hypothetically speaking, if, on the off chance, this guy or any other celebrity crush of yours DM'd you and wanted to hook up with you, then would you do it? Without hesitation, she said absolutely. I'm angry at this because I wouldn't dream of cheating on her with anyone, regardless of their celebrity status. They're human beings just like the rest of us, but she seems to think being a celebrity makes it okay, and that the experience of fucking a celebrity makes it worth it, and she would have no problem if I did the same for an Emma Watson or Taylor Swift type. I would not. Not to mention, it's not completely out of the question for something like this to happen, considering she follows a lot of indie bands. Am I overreacting? I'd like to know my partner is 100% committed to me, not 99% committed until a slightly famous guy approaches her. I should also mention my girlfriend has absolutely no history of being unfaithful. She's a great partner outside of this, I just don't understand celebrity crushes of this extent. She's telling me it's nothing to worry about, but also that she wouldn't consider it cheating if she hooks up with one of these guys after I say I don't want that. I'm confused and my emotions are in a twist over this. Edit, I should also probably mention she met a different celebrity crush a few months ago at a concert. Same deal. Not megastar famous and interacted with her in person. This guy in question is even smaller level celebrity. Very real possibility she could meet him. You're not overreacting here, but this is one where you definitely just need to sit down with her and just firmly state, all joking aside, if you actually did meet one of these indie band members, would you do this? And if they say yes, you need to put your foot down and say, then I would leave you. Full on, Flat out. If she doesn't seem to have a problem with that, then, yeah, you might need to cut it there. A lot of boundaries in relationships need to be established firmly by both parties. And if you firmly put your foot down and she is unwilling to abide by that boundary, then an honest conversation needs to happen of how you would be uncomfortable proceeding in this relationship if she's unwilling to accept that boundary. Communication is extremely important in a relationship, and without it, you're going to have some serious problems moving forward. Who knows, maybe she's just teasing and choking around, and if that is the case, that'll come out in the wash. Murky Test 4194. Am I overreacting for wanting to leave my boyfriend for breaking my stuff when he was angry? About a few weeks ago, my boyfriend, 25 male, and I got into an argument because I, 24 female, was complaining about feeling like he doesn't do enough in the house. I'm the homeowner. For me. He was upset that I specifically said that he does not do anything, but I'll admit he does some things. I feel like I have to wait forever, or even till the next day or so, to get him to do a simple task for me and the house. He seems like he wants praise for doing things that I do every day with no problem. He became very angry with me bringing this up, and he brought up how he spent $1,000 on me for Christmas and my birthday. And I reminded him that yes, I was happy he did that for me, but I did not want him to spend that much. Before even buying anything, I told him that we have about a $300 max limit each for gifts, and I suggested because we both need to be building our savings, especially for him. He decided to get these things anyways and use it as a way to win an argument about contributing. Due to his anger and frustration making me feel uneasy, I decided that I was going to visit my family, 2 hours away without bringing him. He was originally supposed to go with me. He asked if I was going to visit my family, and while packing I said yes. When he was showering, I ended up taking my dog and leaving to my dad's, and he texted me angry, insinuating that our relationship is over. I was worried about the situation and sent my mom over, who lives 30 minutes away, to check on the cats, which was actually her making sure there are no further issues in my home since he unplugged my security camera. Yikes. Hours later, I'm woken up by the sound of his car outside my dad's house. He lets himself into the house and is drunk, which means he drove for 2 hours intoxicated. I was not aware of this until the next day. He starts by trying to explain to me why he was upset and asks why I would just leave him behind. I feel like he was trying to win me back and thought I would completely agree with him and apologize. Then I bring up why I was upset again. He starts to get louder, but not quite shouting. My sister, 18 female, comes out of her room after being woken up at 2 a.m., and he basically makes the situation worse by explaining to her the situation, and he pretty much embarrassed himself. Then, after this is done, I say he can crash on my dad's couch, and he decides not to and drives another 2 hours back home. When I return home the next day, I find the gifts he got me, a telescope, stuffed animals, and a small gift I got him, were destroyed. The pots, pans, lamps, and mirror he bought for both of us were packed away so I could not use them. I was shocked to discover that the telescope lens and the eyes of the stuffed animals were destroyed by being shot by a BB gun. I try to understand his reasoning for being mad, and I know people make mistakes. He agreed to help, therapy, and I did not entirely end things. I kept my distance for about a week. We had another argument, and I brought up that what he did makes me feel unsafe, and I'm thinking I should end things. I know I'm not the perfect partner, and I say things sternly, but I don't think I would have ever reacted in that way. He has not been drinking the past 2 weeks. He says he's been depressed and I don't want to leave him when he's low, but I'm still worried about the situation in him. Edit, he was becoming a functional alcoholic. I asked if he was drunk due to his habits and he denied it, but admitted the next day that he was excessively drinking or else I would have called the police. I regret not doing that anyways. Update, I am going to leave. I just needed the motivation and some validation of my feelings since I'm being made to feel like I'm the one in the wrong and delusional. I did adopt a dog with him last year and I'm figuring out if I can get him back. He is moving out currently and I'm still figuring out how to cut contact completely since I am out of the country and he has access to my home where my mother is staying. Fuck. Okay, you're making the right choice. He's definitely unstable. Like, this is really not good behavior. And yes, you minimizing what he has done around the house was not exactly a good thing. However, if that's what it took to set him off to the point where he was drunk driving for 2 hours, destroying possessions, packing things up, and creating a scene like this, and willing to essentially yell at you at your dad's house, this man is a danger to not only himself but everyone around him. Thank God you're leaving him. And please get a new security system, get a locksmith, all that shit. And as for the dog, I don't know what to tell you. The most you could probably do is maybe prove to a court that you were the primary caretaker if you bought the food, if you took him to the vet, if you covered the vet bills, all that kind of stuff. That's probably your best in, but pet custody is not something that's frequently explored within the courts, at least to my knowledge. Am I overreacting for not wanting to eat dinner with my family anymore because of how they act at restaurants? So I, 31 female, am 6 months pregnant and hormonal and wanting some outside perspective, lol. For context, my mom, 59 female, sisters, 19F and 28F, have never worked in the food industry, and this type of event has happened on multiple occasions. Tonight, we're eating at a nicer restaurant, and my sister, 28 female, is 30 plus minutes late. She had to work late, not her fault. We get it. My mom is trying to say that I can't order until she gets there. Not happening. I'm pregnant and starving, and I'm not waiting on my sister. She runs her own business, so she could have left early, I feel like, but again, whatever. We all go ahead and order, and my sister and her husband order 10 to 15 minutes later. We're all still waiting our food 20 plus minutes later, and my sister decided she doesn't want what she ordered, and asks the waitress to completely change her order. In her defense, she did say if it was too late, it was fine, but who changes their order 20 minutes afterwards? My mom has always treated her like a princess, so I think she feels entitled. My sister also has food allergies, and she's super picky on top of her allergies, so it's also a pain finding a place where she can eat. Like one time she asked for lobster ravioli without the ravioli, and then wondered why she couldn't order it like that. My mom will spend forever looking at the menu, take 5 minutes to order, ask for several different customizations for her order, then change her mind again and then get frustrated when her order doesn't come out right. It's infuriating. I've tried politely telling her why her order comes out wrong and why what she is doing is frustrating, but since she's never worked in food, she just views it as part of their job and gets mad at me when I say something. She also does this in drive-thrus. Am I being pregnant and overreacting? It's just gotten to the point where I don't want to attend family dinners that are in public places. Nah, you're totally good. This is like actually just really embarrassing and frustrating, and I would hate to have family members that actively do this. I used to work in food service, and this probably applies to anyone who has worked in the service industry before. When you have family members that are being embarrassing towards other members of the service industry, you feel that personal shame and guilt put upon you because you understand the kind of harm that your family/friends are causing. And it's super uncomfy. I think the only part of this I actually disagree with is the reasoning on that she runs a business so she could have left early. That's the only part I disagree with. The rest of this I'm totally on your side about. Your mom declining that, like, you being able to order food, that's bullshit. The fact that they're kind of pulling this stuff with the waitstaff, that's also bullshit. All the pickiness about it and constantly changing and making additions or revisions or changing their order midway through, that's bullshit. You're totally valid within, like, pretty much all of this. Minus the one nitpick, but you seem to also realize that's a nitpick. So yeah, I don't think you're overreacting at all. This is like super uncomfy social cringe that you're being subjected to that, personally, I would also really not be a fan of. This is posted by Haha Fooled Ya. That's a little suspicious. Am I overreacting for stating, you need to start keeping your room clean or else I'm not coming over anymore? I told my partner this. My partner is a messy person. Everyone is allowed to keep their spaces the way they feel comfortable. However, it's getting a little out of hand. One weekend recently, she had a pile of ash on the floor, smokes, of her room the entire weekend I was over. Because of where it was, and it being a dark room, I would constantly accidentally step in it. No matter how many times I complained, nothing got done about it. She just continues to say, I don't have the energy. This weekend, I was watching TV in the living room at night while she slept. Eventually, I packed it up for the night and headed to bed. Usually, I'm able to get to bed no problem, even in the pitch black room, and she finally cleaned her room, so no worries of stepping in ash. However, this time, she left a bag earring she bought on the floor next to the bed and I stepped on it. The piercing part went directly into my foot and I was bleeding. Even today, the next day, my foot still stings and tingles and I'm hoping these symptoms aren't anything more. You gotta get that shit disinfected, man. Holy shit. You gotta get that checked out, man. Yeah, you're definitely not overreacting. I've dealt with a partner who's lived in an extremely messy house and always used the excuse of, I just don't have the energy to clean, or I'll do it later, or insert some random excuse here. Every goddamn time. If you're living alone and that's how you want to be, so be it. But the moment you start subjecting other people to that, then it becomes an actual problem that you gotta deal with. So no, I don't think you're overreacting, and you definitely have a right to, not want to step on an earring at night or step in ash. That's, ugh. In real talk, having a messy partner that's like unwilling to clean their mess and is willing to subject you to it, that's like one of the biggest red flags of like a larger problem at stake, and you should really really actually have an honest conversation with them about, if you're unwilling to clean up your own mess, then I can't be around this. Impressive method, 7923. Am I overreacting? My sister told me she was thinking about what it would feel like to punch me in my pregnant belly. Now, me and my husband are thinking about not letting her have a relationship with our child. Am I overreacting? Now, there is an update to this one that we will be reading afterwards. My husband, 31 male, and I, 30 female, are currently 7 months pregnant. We decided to have our baby shower back in our hometown so that our family and friends could make it. We arrived 5 days before the shower in order to spend some time with our families. We usually stay at my parents' house, which consists of my parents and my sister, 28 female. Our families have not seen me in about 6 months, and this would be the first time they saw my pregnant belly. The first day we arrived, my parents were joyful and excited to spend time with us and finally see me pregnant and showing. My sister showed up after being out with friends later that night, and as soon as she saw me, she looked disgusted. She slowly walked towards me, making a disgusted face and saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe you look like that." She said hi and proceeded to tell me that on the drive home, she was thinking about how it would feel to punch me in the belly. Deadpan. There was no chuckle after or any sense of it being even remotely a joke. I was in shock and immediately felt unsafe, but tried not to have a visible reaction for my parents' sake. I stood there a couple of minutes while she poked my stomach while making a disgusted look and just felt incredibly uncomfortable and on guard for any sudden movements. I then excused myself and said I was going to sleep. Throughout the following days leading up to the shower, I avoided her and shared what happened with my husband and parents who had overheard the conversation but hadn't quite grasped exactly what she had said to me. They were all concerned, and my mom spoke to her friend that happens to be a therapist. This therapist friend told my mom that what my sister said was extremely concerning and needed to be addressed. When my parents addressed it with her, she blamed her anxiety and depression and told them that my husband and I have everything and now we're having a baby and she has nothing to live for. She said all she does is go to work and sleep. For background, she's been going to therapy and on depression and anxiety medication for about 10 years. She's been extremely rude and selfish her entire life, and this isn't the first time she says that she's had suicidal thoughts. During my college years, I moved out of my parents' house and she blamed her depression on me leaving the house for leaving her behind and threatened my parents with suicidal comments. Throughout the years, she's made my parents feel like I need to be responsible for her mental health and happiness. It comes off to me and other family members like she manipulates my parents into doing everything for her because of her depression. After the baby shower and some long conversations between my husband and I, we're trying to unpack it all. We're considering not allowing her to have contact with our daughter once she's born. We assume she doesn't even want to make any effort to build a relationship with our child anyways. Are we overreacting? So before we wander on over into the update, I just want to say 2 things. 1, using your anxiety and depression as a crutch to excuse your actions is not okay. There is a massive difference between blaming your actions on your depression and anxiety and saying something like, "Hey, yesterday was a really rough day for me and I'm sorry, but my depression and anxiety got the best of me and my actions were inexcusable." The difference between the two of these is that in one of them, you're using your anxiety and depression to excuse your actions, while in the other, you are using them to explain your actions, but personally, taking accountability for what you've done. As someone who does have depression and anxiety, that is a massive pet peeve of mine. And for the other half of this, yeah, I actually really do think that you are underreacting in this scenario, or if not, properly reacting in this scenario. It's one thing if it would be a really inappropriate joke and still just telling your sister, "Hey, that joke really made me uncomfortable because you joked about killing my child," compared to your sister just deadpan telling you, "Hey, I want to kill your child and see what it feels like," with no explanation for that comment, and then going off to say, "Yeah, but it's fine because you lived a more privileged life than me." That's insane. And now let's take a look at that update. So I definitely think I underreacted and have just been desensitized to our nasty comments, manipulative actions, rude behavior, and just overall attitude. I'd like to address those saying that I should have done more in the moment. Yeah, I should have. But it's easy to see that when thinking back on it, or when, like you, I'm sitting behind a screen reading this situation and what you think you would have done. It's another thing entirely when it's actually happening to you in the moment. For those saying that my parents are cuddling her, yes, they are. However, I think most parents that are being told by their child that they're suicidal would probably try to keep that from happening in any way they can. And I agree. My parents need to seek therapy to help them understand how to better handle her. My sister is an adult and they can't just reach out to her therapist. Her therapy is virtual and they have no contact information for them. Regarding those wondering what she's been diagnosed with, all I know is the anxiety and depression. My husband and I have speculated about her being narcissistic and having a personality disorder like borderline, but we don't think she's been diagnosed, and if she has, she hasn't shared that with us. I also think therapy is what you make of it, and there's no way to know what exactly she shares with her therapist. Like I said, she's an adult, and some of the suggestions in the comments aren't taking that into consideration. For those suggesting she gets a psych evaluation, how does one go about getting one of those? I mean, without having the cops called or forcing her to go to the hospital and getting her involuntarily hospitalized, is there a less traumatic way of requesting a psych evaluation be performed, assuming she'd be willing? For those suggesting my parents kick her out, they are never going to do that. If she were to ever kill herself, they would feel completely responsible, as probably any parent would. So whether or not she's manipulating anyone, it's still just a fact that no one is willing to take that risk with their own child. I would also like to point out that even before this incident, my husband and I had already agreed that we would never have her watch our child or be responsible in any way for their care, since we both agreed that she probably wouldn't want to and neither of us would feel comfortable with that. We also agreed that we weren't going to stay at my parents' house when we came to town to visit after our kid is born because it'd just be uncomfortable. Lack of space. For those concerned about me still being around her, the baby shower is now done and over with, and we're safely back at home, very far away, and there's no way of her being around me. Thank you for all those who wish me well, your thoughts are appreciated. For those saying this is a fake post, all I have to say is I really wish it was. Mental Bird 555. Am I overreacting that my partner keeps getting so drunk he wets the bed? I'm honestly at a complete loss right now. We've been together for 3 years and he definitely struggles with alcohol addiction. He's now started wetting the bed when he gets too drunk, and I feel like I'm nearing my limits at this point with his alcohol consumption and what it does to our lives. He went to a wedding last night and I opted not to go because I don't want to be around him when he's partying. I let him borrow my camper that I had just bought a brand new mattress for so he could spend the night there. I've also been planning on selling the mattress because it's not quite the right size. Anyways, this morning, I discovered that he had pissed all over the mattress last night. I was obviously upset, and the first thing he says was, "Hello, honey, nice to see you too," which honestly feels manipulative to me. Like, you just ruined my brand new mattress, of course I'm upset. Then, when I told him that I was disappointed, he yelled at me and told me he's disappointed in himself, so why would he want to hear that from me? Am I overreacting here? Is it wrong for me to be upset with him? So let's start with laying an unfortunate foundation. If he's at a point in his life where he is actively pissing the bed, and that is not a wake-up call for him to lessen his drinking, there is probably not a damn thing you can do in the relationship to get him to stop drinking. And as shitty as it is to say, he's not your responsibility. You've got to put you first, and not everyone's in a position where they can just up and leave a relationship. If you can put your ducks in a row and do that, that should be what you're doing in this position, is you should be leaving him. But if you can't, you need to set some hard boundaries immediately, and probably start with having him replace the mattress. At the end, all I can really say is good luck and make sure you put yourself first. Hug One Corn. Am I overreacting for telling my husband I won't eat out with his parents anymore? I, 29 female, and my husband, 34 male, have been together for 11 years. I know my in-laws well at this point. We don't see them often because they're out of state. Background. I have a history of disordered eating and bulimia. I'm much better now, I've been in therapy for years, but I do still get triggered from time to time. The problem is every time my husband and I go out to eat with mother-in-law. She's always saying weird stuff and commenting about the size of everyone's plate and how much they're eating. She's constantly talking about counting calories. When the food comes, she immediately asks for a box and packs up 1/2 to 3/4 of her meal and encourages everyone else to do the same. "What a huge sandwich! I could never eat that much," is one of her favorite comments. Not only that, but her and father-in-law are rude to waitstaff, and it's really embarrassing for me and my husband. We both worked in the service industry, so maybe we just have a better handle on how to treat people, but mother-in-law sends her food back at least once every time we eat out. Mother-in-law likes to brag about how she put my husband on a secret diet as a kid. I think it's super weird, and I've seen the way her eating disorder has affected my husband over the years. After our last restaurant experience with them, I told my husband I think it's too much, and I just prefer that we all make something at home if this is going to continue. He agreed, but did admit that it would be hard to explain to mother-in-law and father-in-law. Am I overreacting? I just don't want to feel the urge to fall back into my eating disorder every time they come around. Edit. Wow, I really appreciate everyone's support. It's easy to talk yourself into letting bad behavior go when you're just trying to make something work. Thank you everyone for making me feel less alone in this. Second, I want to clarify that my husband is 100% on board and fully aware of mother-in-law's toxic behavior. He understands how important it is to set boundaries with her, and he actually does, which I'm proud of him for. Again, you gotta put you first. That's what's important here. You are actively putting yourself at risk by going out to dinner with them, and honestly, probably just having them around in general. There is nothing wrong with you putting yourself first in this situation. The easiest way you might be able to convince them is just by pulling the "it's healthier and better for us" card, because if the mother-in-law seems to be very calorie counting, chances are she's probably also health conscious. So that might be your best bet. Because you can't pull the finance card of saying we don't have the finances for it, because then they might just offer to pay for it and then you knock out any other opportunity you have, because then it's clear you're making an excuse. So don't pull the finances card. Being direct and upfront might cause confrontation and sour things, or could lead to other escalations, so you can't usually go with that. So in my eyes, I think taking the health-conscious route is probably your best way to convince the mother-in-law that eating at home is the better option, if that's actually what you want. You could also just cold turkey cut off having dinners and foods with them and reserve it to just family gatherings. I mean, that's also an option as well, because chances are if you cook at home, you're still going to have the same problems, just at least she's not going to be an asshole to waitstaff, which is pretty fucking embarrassing. You could also just bite the bullet and have a direct conversation about everything and see what happens, but that could either go horribly wrong or it could actually open the door to improving the relationship with the mother-in-law. I don't know, I'd be curious to see what y'all have to say in the comments on this one, because I don't think going no contact is an answer here. This one is interesting because it's one that I've been wanting to have for a long time. We get both perspectives of this story, from both the husband and the wife. I'm looking forward to this. Am I overreacting for getting upset when my wife had another man in the delivery room? Last month, I'm 28 male, my wife, 25 female, called me in a frenzy telling me that her water broke and that she was going into labor. This was incredibly shocking to both of us because she was still early on in the pregnancy. My problem with this is that I was already on the road, about 30 minutes away tending to my mother, who had just called me to tell me that she was in an accident. Not a significant one, but it still shook her up. I told my wife to call an ambulance because I would not be turning around to drive her to the hospital and witness her birth. What the fuck? She yelled, cursed, cried, and screamed at me through the phone while I tried to calm her by telling her to call my sister if she didn't want to call an ambulance, since my sister lives only 20 to 25 minutes away. After this, she went silent and hung up, and I didn't hear from her for about an hour and a half after the call. I checked my phone for the first time since getting to my mother, and my sister sent me a video of my wife actively giving birth while holding her male friend's hand the way women squeeze their husband's hand for comfort during labor. My sister immediately followed up the video with a text that said, "When are you going to get here?" I ignored this text and asked her if she's the one who drove my wife to the hospital, and she responded no. I asked her who did, and she informed me that it was my wife's male friend, who lives only 10 minutes away, who drove her and was getting his hand squeezed by my wife. I ended up just asking my sister for the full story while I drove my mother back to her home since everything was sorted out with the accident. Long story short, instead of calling my sister or an ambulance, my wife called her male friend that I've always unliked, but never informed my wife. I told my sister to get on FaceTime with me, but not to make it obvious to anyone else in the delivery room, and I would stay silent on the other end. During the call, I saw my wife's male friend rubbing her back, wiping her tears, comforting her when she screamed and cried, etc. I couldn't bear the sight, and I ended the FaceTime and told my sister to inform my wife that I would be at the hospital the next day after work whenever she got out of labor. My sister called almost 2 hours later to tell me she had left the hospital and that my wife would be staying the night. The next day, around 3 to 4 p.m. Oh my god. No, you did not. The next day, around 3 to 4 p.m., when I went over to the hospital to see my wife and newborn son, she was not trying to hide her anger and saltiness from anyone in the room. That included mostly my family and some of hers. When I asked her why she was acting this way, she rolled her eyes and told me to leave her the fuck alone, in front of everyone. Later, when I tried to hold my son, she snatched him from my hands. In this hospital, visiting hours ended at 8, but all of the guests, excluding me, left by 6. When we were alone, I finally got the chance to have a conversation with her about why she's being so salty on a memorable day that should have been filled with love and joy. She responded by getting angry and mumbling something about my audacity to miss her birth and be surprised that she's angry. I'm not proud of this, but in response, I called her a cheater for inviting another man into the living room in place of her husband. She did invite you, you fucking idiot! This spiraled into a short, full-blown argument between us that eventually ended when an NICU nurse came back with the baby. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but this is deranged. It's been a month since then, and my wife only refers to our son as her son, her baby, etc. I've tried to get closer to her by sitting down and trying to have a deep conversation about our family's future, and she flat out told me that she was never having another child with me after what happened, which deeply hurt me. Last week, I heard my wife on the phone talking about who would be godfathers and mothers to our son. She told whoever was on the other end that she would be choosing the male friend as godfather because he was there for me when my name couldn't care less. This post is all over the place, but let me know if I overreacted in the argument when I saw her in the delivery room after she gave birth, or if anyone knows how to fix my marriage and family. Edit, no, this isn't rage bait, I genuinely need advice, sorry if the wording made it seem that way. I also didn't know the accident was minor until I arrived, and everyone suggesting we get a divorce doesn't know the meaning and dedication of marriage and family. If you have questions, please message me if you want me to answer. Okay. Let's just give you full benefit of the doubt with your mother having an accident and you just having to rely on other people to help you with your wife. I could understand that. It is shitty, but at least it's understandable you wanting to make sure that your mother is okay while your wife was giving birth. What is unfucking fathomable is you going home, going to bed, going to work, and then seeing your wife after she gave birth. And you had the fucking audacity to yell at her for relying on someone else? You couldn't even be there, after the accident was over. It is so laughable how dense you are during this. I could barely contain it. Hell, I couldn't contain it. Dude, there is no recovery from this. If you had maybe shown up afterwards, yeah, there would be some tension, but at least it would be understandable. But you waited almost a full 24 hours before checking in with your wife, and then you were mad at her because she had to rely on other people because you couldn't be damned. Of course it's her child. You don't give a shit. Anyways, let's see the wife's point of view. Update. Am I overreacting for getting upset at my wife for having another man in the delivery room? I'm the wife from that post, lol. A friend found it and sent it to me. Still don't get why he didn't post it on a burner account. Anyway, I decided to make an account to respond, clear some things up, and tell my side of the story as briefly as I can. Yes, I did call my husband to tell him that my water broke, and he did tell me that he wouldn't make it and to call an ambulance or his sister, who has called me a slur to my face before, so I don't know why he thought this would be a good idea. I did not call his sister because we don't get along, and I have a friend that lives closer to us. He ends up driving me to the hospital, and his sister pulls in the lot almost right after us. Don't know how she knew I was going, so now I'm in pain, scared, upset at my husband, and have someone I don't like with me during my most vulnerable moments. I was holding my male friend's hand because why wouldn't I be? Now, it was very obvious that sister-in-law was recording me in some way because she was basically isolating herself from everyone else in the room with her phone to her chest and pointing at me. I didn't think that she was on FaceTime with anyone, I just thought she was filming me. Which is equally as weird, I'm not sure why I brushed it off or didn't ask about it when I was more stable. My husband did in fact show up the next day around 4 p.m. and tried to act like nothing happened, and I was very moody and rude to him, which was probably very immature of me. No, you're fine. This later broke out into an argument after everyone left where he called me a cheater and I also said some very nasty things. and you were justified. I've been isolating me and my son away from him as much as I can and trying to be less dependent on him in some aspects. The reason for this is because I feel that I can't trust him to keep my son safe or change his diaper or pour my breast milk into a bottle and feed him or burp him or basically do anything for my son at all. It is true that I and my son are financially dependent on my husband like he has stated before, and because of this fact, I cannot divorce him. Not now at least, because I do not have any support system or family that lives near us to help me and my son, and I'm still in school. I know staying for the kids isn't healthy, but my family has recommended for me to stay for the sake of my schooling and my son's happiness. My husband had stated multiple times that he had apologized, but these, quote, apologies were just along the lines of, "I'm sorry, will you stop being angry now?" No, I am not sleeping with a male friend. We've been friends since 2nd grade, and there's never been anything romantic or sexual between us. Please don't mind my spelling or grammar. English is my first language, nor am I from an English-speaking country, and this was also rushed. Your grammar is better than your husband's. Feel free to ask any questions because I tend to leave details out. This whole thing feels as unrealistic as it sounds. Also, a nurse never came back with the baby after the argument. That's not even how it works. I would say in this situation, couples counseling is your best bet because your husband did fundamentally erode your trust, and you have every right to not trust him to take care of the child. And the fact that he doesn't understand what he did is very concerning. Again, it is one thing to check on his mother and then go to the hospital right after and be apologetic and to be there for you and support you. It is an entirely different gamble, with a fucking paradox billiards, Russian roulette, 4th dimensional hypercube chess strip poker moment for him to just simply not show up, go to work, and then show up at 4 p.m. and act like nothing happened. What kind of gambit is that? You have every right to be mad at him. Bleep blorp, and that's their username. Am I overreacting when I refuse to say please when a customer demanded it because I found it creepy? I, 20 female, work in a retail job where I have multiple responsibilities and am required to be nice to customers. Over the 4 years I worked there, I've had multiple instances when customers try to flirt with me, ask me out, or are just inappropriate. So I've grown a shiny spine towards men's advances and have a sixth sense to their bullshit. This specific instance includes a regular in his mid-40s to early 50s who came into my line to buy a case of beer. I begun the transaction by asking him if he can show his ID. Because our store policy required all customers to show a valid ID before they can purchase alcohol. He knew of the store policy, but proceeds to play a weird game of, "I'm not showing you my ID unless you say please," with a grin plastered on his face. This caused me to be stunned for a second, with my immediate response being that I need the ID if he wants to buy beer. The dude then goes on to say that he wanted me to ask him nicely, which led me to refuse and say that I can just stop the sale. Reluctantly, he shows me his ID while stating that he was trying to teach me manners, and sticks his middle finger out as he hands me the money. Sounds like he needs some manners as well. I had a similar situation to this happen to me before, leading to me to think that men are demanding me to say please have some sort of fetish or need to express dominance. Overall, I find learning manners from a middle age I don't know to be creepy and gross. So Reddit, did I overreact? Edit 1. Hey guys, thank you for all your replies. I know manners can be a polarizing subject for people, especially in situations of customer service. I appreciate your guys' advice about adding please to my question. It just became a force of habit to say, "Can you show me your ID?" I got a lot I gotta say on this in a bit. Because I was taught that please was used during an optional request, and usually people that are buying one item just want to leave the store quickly. I prefer to instead say thank you, as even during this one, I said it to him twice for his ID and shopping, though he may have thought I was making fun of him. A very cute version of the shrug emote. In the case of my management, they're really good about having my back on these things, especially in customer interactions. I'm pretty good about de-escalating situations and am one of the few native English speakers and don't take things to heart. Also, I have other skills that make up for some of my shortfalls. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom, stories, and even your troll comments because they still give me a laugh. I'm kind of scared to actually go down and read what some of the comments are saying, but my 2 cents is that as a guy, if I was working the cash register, no one would ever ask me to say please to them. Unless it was like a little old lady, that might be a different circumstance. But no one would ever ask me to add a please to my question. This is entirely a female issue where, I mean, as they stated, I don't know if it's a fetish thing, but it could be like a dominance assertion thing or just a guy being creepy and liking it when younger women tell him please. But still, I know for a damn fact that as a guy, no one would ever say this to me. Especially because this so-called paragon of manners who was requesting them to say please to teach them a lesson used the middle finger after he was denied. To me, this sounds like someone who isn't very well versed in manners in my opinion. I decided to have some fun and sort by controversial, and a lot of the comments that are being downvoted to oblivion are usually ones that are stating like, it's not that hard to say please, and I don't think that's the problem here. I think the problem is the fact that a male cashier isn't going to have the same interaction as a female cashier. Yeah, sure, please might make things a little bit easier, but that's not the point of this here. And keep in mind before you go scurrying to the comments to disagree with me, he did flip her off after the request was denied. I don't think the point of this post is whether or not it's proper etiquette to say please or thank you while working in the service industry. I think the point of this post is the fact that she encountered a customer who she found creepy that she refused to say please to. Hell, when I was working in the service industry, it was really damn common for me to leave the back when I was on grill or cooking or doing stock and inventory and run the register because one of the girls up front was really creeped out by a customer, so I posted up there and just had them do some menial task that, I was going to do anyways while I dealt with the problem, which normally was just standing in place and, being the twink up front. Starcaller26. Am I overreacting for demanding we rehome the pet that was purchased while I was away for the weekend? This past weekend, myself, 30s male, and my son, grade school aged, were away at a camping trip. While we were gone, my wife, same age, and daughter, also grade school aged, younger than my son, went to the pet store and ended up purchasing a bunny. I am now demanding that the bunny be rehomed. I think a new pet is something the entire family should agree on, and that it was really shitty of my wife to do this. My wife and daughter are already very attached to the bunny and don't want it to leave. Am I overreacting, or am I justified to demand the pet be returned? Additional context is that we already have 3 guinea pigs and a hamster. The hamster was purchased under similar circumstances. I went to the office for the first time since COVID, and while gone for the day, my wife bought the hamster without talking about it at all. I was really mad back then, but moved on. The hamster is now likely to pass soon, as it's been sick for some time. I'm not involved at all in the pet care or cleaning. My wife does it all. So, from her perspective, I'm not impacted at all. The guinea pigs are free-ranged, and we basically have an entire room on the main floor of our 1,800 square foot house that is dedicated to the guinea pigs and hamster. My wife is now talking about divorce since we don't want the same things, which I think is bullshit because we do want the same things, I just don't want any more pets right now, and I especially want a say in the matter. I let it slide once with the hamster and now I regret that. From her perspective, it will always be a no from me. So, if she's asking for a divorce, it's not about the bunny, there is a lot more at play going on here. If she is threatening divorce over just the bunny, then that is absolutely absurd, and I would recommend calling her on her bluff, but I do think there probably is a lot more going on behind the scenes in this marriage if she's that willing to jump ship. That besides the fact the wife is going for the ask for forgiveness rather than permission, especially when it comes to buying a pet, which is a long-term commitment, especially because rabbits are not an easy animal, they require a lot of maintenance. That is concerning, to say the least. And if a divorce is on the table, you bet your ass your wife is currently trying to turn your daughter against you by painting you as the father that just wants to rehome all the pets and is mean and angry, and it's your mean old dad just wants to get rid of that bunny. Also, the fuck you mean you have free-range guinea pigs? So, in the process of Googling what a free-range guinea pig is, my apologies for not understanding the fact that people do create enclosures in their backyard for guinea pigs. Pretty cute, not gonna lie, but not my cup of tea. I stumbled upon the fact that rabbits and guinea pigs should not be together because they have cross-contaminating diseases that can be very dangerous towards each other, plus they don't get along very well. So, I get the impression the wife just went to the pet store and bought the bunny and did no research as to what care and requirements need to be done for that, which tells me that bunny is probably going to be pretty miserable, and it's probably going to be something where the novelty of having a bunny is going to be fun for a little bit, but when that wears off, that rabbit's going to be a pain in the ass that can't interact with the guinea pigs because of other problems. This also creates a problem where now the husband can't reliably leave the house without worrying about his wife making an impulse purchase for the daughter, so oh boy. Either therapy or, honestly, call her on her bluff for a divorce, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Because her threatening a divorce over a rabbit is fucking wild. Especially because the long-term ramifications that can cause for a child. Now, for me, real quick, I don't know if I've said this in a previous video, my parents divorced when I was 4. I am very well aware of the long-term ramifications that can happen to a child after divorce. And I honestly find it pretty insulting that she's willing just to throw that around as a threat when dealing with a bunny being rehomed. Satisfaction need. 7273. Am I overreacting? I think my husband might be framing my 8-year-old son. I have an 8-year-old son who was in a terrible accident 3 years ago that landed him in a 2-week coma, required multiple surgeries on his cracked skull, and in which he suffered from a traumatic brain injury. Miraculously, he walked away mostly okay, aside from some severe scarring, blindness in one eye, and kind of terrible short-term memory loss. While his memory has improved, he still forgets a lot. Not anything significant, but things like constantly forgetting things I ask him to do, not remembering what he ate for breakfast, and things of that nature. The worst thing, though, is that he loses and misplaces everything. It can be quite frustrating, but I try to give him a lot of grace knowing his situation. A year and a half ago, he got an iPhone for Christmas, and within 3 months it was lost. He swore up and down that he last had it on our couch and that somebody had to have hid it from him. Year and a half ago? You got a 6.5-year-old an iPhone for Christmas? Holy shit. After questioning the one other kid in the house, I came to the conclusion that no one hid it from him and he must have lost it and just not remembered where he had it last, despite his confidence that he had it on the couch. For months, I would spend every free weekend tearing my house apart and deep cleaning in hopes that it would turn up, but it never did, so I just gave up and considered it a loss. I blame myself because he clearly was not ready for that responsibility. About a year later, I ended up winning an iPad at work, and with my son being the only person in the house without a phone, the iPad unofficially became his. After about a month, you guessed it, he lost it. He again swore up and down that someone is messing with him and taking his things and hiding them. Again, I really just blame myself. About 3 months later, I was putting away some laundry and was tired of my husband's t-shirt drawer being a jumbled mess, so I pulled everything out to reorganize and lo and behold, my iPad was sitting in the bottom of the drawer. I asked my husband about it and he seemed really confused about how it got in there and insisted he didn't put it there. Knowing that my son struggles with impulsive behavior from his accident and ADHD, I just assumed my son put it in the drawer, possibly to hide it from his brother, and then forgot about it. Which brings me to tonight. I just went out to my husband's car to look for something in his trunk, which took me a bit as it's a complete mess of papers, grocery bags, shoes, gym stuff, water bottles, coffee mugs, returns that never got returned, etc. And as I was rummaging through the mess, I found my son's iPhone that had been missing for almost 2 years. This time, I know there is absolutely no chance that my son put it in there because he is rarely ever in his car and absolutely no one ever goes in that trunk except for my husband. Now it's 1 a.m. and my husband is snoring away and I can't sleep wondering if he was hiding these things on purpose and my son was right the whole time. But what would be his motive for doing this? Or does he just have terrible memory and not remember doing this? He can be forgetful, but this is a little much. For added context, my son is my husband's stepson, if it matters. I, of course, will talk to him in the morning about it, but I can't stop thinking about it. What are your thoughts? Am I overreacting? Edit, it's now the next morning, but my husband left the gym before I woke up, so I haven't spoken to him about it yet. I didn't expect this much engagement and have not had a chance to read everyone's comments, but based on what a lot of people were commenting or asking last night, maybe posting it here would be helpful since I responded to a few comments and maybe got lost in the shuffle. Both times that I found the devices, they appeared to be completely unused. They were both dead, which is why Find My iPhone wouldn't work. And once I got the iPad on, search history, etc. was all that of my son's. The phone immediately had the alert on screen stating it was a lost device and to call my number as I marked it as lost after it went missing. Additionally, I would be amazed if he knew the password to either of these devices. He doesn't monitor that sort of thing with any of the kids and wasn't involved in the setup of these devices or anything. He's pretty lax about that stuff. Or so it would seem. The following I am adding, not because I'm defending him or making excuses, but because it will provide some additional context as to why I'm even posting about it, seeking outside opinions rather than just immediately knowing that he took the devices intentionally or maliciously. Both times the devices were lost, my husband never once got mad at my son for losing them. I never once got mad at him for losing them. I even mentioned a couple times that I blamed myself. My husband never got mad at me or made any comments about how my son wasn't ready for the responsibility, etc. The only commentary he ever had was, well, he knows if he lost it, he doesn't get another one, right? This is the general exception we gave to all of our kids. Take care of your phone, if you lose it or break it, that's it. Additionally, my husband is the one that bought him the phone and he continued to pay for the line all this time. Never canceled the service. He also never likes to blame stuff on my son's injury and says things all the time along the lines of, even with his accident, he's smarter than most kids I've met, more athletic, etc., and thinks I use it as a crutch too often and don't give my son enough credit for how far he's come. So it's not like he was blaming the lost devices on my son's traumatic brain injury. Last bit of info. Some people commented about how there is no way he could have forgotten the phone was in the trunk, as men go in there all the time. This may be the case with most men, but if it wasn't made clear enough, his trunk is a dumping ground for the messes that accumulated in his car that he moves to the trunk and never deals with again. For example, one of the things I found in there was a framed photo of his kids that said, Happy Father's Day 2023. So it's been in there for over a year. Also, I found the phone under a bunch of junk, so it's not like it was staring up at him every time he opened the trunk. So, with all that being said, hopefully now it's more clear as to why I'm genuinely confused as to what the hell his motive would be if he did take them intentionally or maliciously. What would he get out of it? Do you all think there is any chance that his ADHD is so bad that he took them for whatever reason and genuinely forgot? This is why I was wondering if I was overreacting. Thank you all for the comments, insight, and thoughts. Dude, I got no fucking idea. I'm gonna be honest. I got no idea. Like, he continued to pay the bill for the phone bill for all those years, despite the fact that, I mean, it was lost, so it's not like he just, I don't know. This is weird. You just gotta have a conversation with your husband about it, because this is, like, bizarre. The only thing I can honestly say would be confront your husband about it and possibly maybe family therapy, but, like, this is just weird. I'd be very curious to kind of know what y'all are thinking, because there's definitely some red flags here, but I can't tell if this is just something where it's just a very simple misunderstanding, or if there's like a really massive red flag going on here that, you know, could have implications of larger forms of abuse going on. And I'm gonna kind of just take a step back and see what y'all have to say about it. Pages of the Void. Am I overreacting for dumping my partner's family because they think I'm a dud? My partner, female 27, and I, male 29, have been dating for about 4 years. I'm a lawyer, and she works in tech. We live together. I lost my job this spring, and I am qualified for unemployment benefits. I'm also lucky to have an emergency fund and no debt. My partner's job is great, and she makes plenty of money. This period of unemployment was good for me. With more time and energy to reflect, I admitted to myself that I have been depressed for over a year. I also realized that law firm litigation is not the right path for me. So, for the first 3 months after losing my job, I focused on healing myself and rethinking my career direction. I went to therapy, resumed exercise, reduced my alcohol consumption, began prescription medication, kept a clean house, played with my dog, improved relationships, enjoyed outdoor hobbies, read challenging books, did pro bono work, and met many people to chat about different career paths. I applied to 100 or so jobs and interviewed for a few, but it wasn't all that important to me. I also played a lot of video games during this time, often until the wee hours of the morning. I mostly played alone and sometimes enjoyed cannabis. On occasion, I played multiplayer games with my partner's sister, who doesn't have many friends right now in her new city. My mental health had improved greatly, probably due to exercise and not video games, and I've been in a full-time white-knuckled job hunt for the past 2 months. I'm getting more interviews, and hopefully something will pan out soon. I'm supporting myself without issue in the meantime, and I still cover 50% of our living costs. Yesterday, I overheard my partner having a passionate conversation with her mother on the phone. I realized that she was defending someone and accusing her mother of projecting, but I didn't want to listen in. A few minutes later, the call ended, and she left the room with a sullen face. I asked her about the conversation. She explained that her mother says the entire family has soured on her relationship with me and are concerned about her. They know I've been unemployed for 5 months. They know, as Sister A confirmed, that I'm playing video games most nights and sometimes during the day, and that I use cannabis. As such, they don't think that I'm sufficiently focused on my career, and our relationship is doomed as a result. Then, last night, my partner received texts from her sisters. The texts were similar in tone and content, advising that she leave and offering their support. The texts read as if I'm mildly abusive, indicating that I'm manipulating her to stay with me while I fail out of my career. This caught me completely off guard. My partner's family seemed to really like me. Both her siblings have stayed with us. I went to Sister B's wedding and have had quite a few positive social experiences hanging out with my partner and Sister A. The parents wanted us to go on a trip with them, which I abstained from because I had to work. How did their opinion of me become so negative so quickly after a single career setback? They know my partner isn't paying for me, and my work ethic is fine, and my background is more a hard-working underdog story than most, and I'm healthy and motivated again. I'm not an abuser either. I'm a gentle person who would totally be supportive of my partner if she wanted to leave me. And above all, my partner is an intelligent adult who knows her needs much better than they do. She can make her own decisions. I told my partner today that I don't want to interact with her immediate family anymore, unless doing so is necessary for some important reason. She understood, but was upset. Am I overreacting? I mean, we all gossip, I guess. I may also be overly sensitive to the relative socioeconomic class disparity between my partner's family and mine, and projecting some of the resentment I feel for how I've been treated in other situations by more privileged people. Hey, thanks guys, I had fun with this, but I'm going to be off for a bit. I've got to find a job. What probably did you in was the sister, and playing video games with her, as she probably had the impression that you were only playing video games and only smoking weed, and then told the family that you're only playing video games and only smoking weed and not looking for any kind of career path, and the parents see it as, oh shit, my daughter's dating a deadbeat, we gotta do something about that. So I don't think it's the family, I think it's just that sister, if I'm gonna be honest with you. In my personal opinion, congratulations on working on yourself and putting yourself forward and actually finding out what's, been holding you back and how to improve your life. That is an important part of growing and finding peace with yourself, and good for you. But I think the cause of this is not her family. I do really think it is just that one sister that probably just twisted things to hell and back and probably labeled things in a really negative light, and, it just escalated and spiraled from there. 1 prompt 7701. Am I overreacting for no longer wanting a relationship with my stepdaughter after she lied to the police and tried to put felony charges on me? I, 33 female, have informed my husband, 34 male, that I no longer want a relationship with his daughter, 17 female, and she should be facing serious consequences for her actions. My husband's daughter has learned to navigate life via manipulation because of how she watched her parents go through a bitter and messy custody parenting situation the last 17 years. She's always been treated, by me at least, as if I birthed her myself for the last 10 years. When she became a teenager, she used lies and manipulation to get her way. Anytime she wants to leave a household, she cries abuse from the adults in the house. She's accused her birth mother of physical and verbal abuse, and my husband of the same. In 2023, she told police my husband punched her, and the bruise on her neck was from him abusing her. We had CPS and the cops at her home who discovered that bruise was a Hygh from the boyfriend she wasn't allowed to be alone with. She got caught skipping school and track practice to be at this boy's house. She didn't appreciate being told no and not being able to smoke weed and do what she wants. Fast forward to June 2024. She's in trouble yet again for skipping class to the point of in-school suspensions. She's grounded, of course, and failed classes. She just failed 10th grade at 17 years old because she cares more about shaking ass, smoking, and being in the streets and social media. Last day of school, she lied to me and I caught her in the lie, and she was being dismissive and disrespectful, so I took her school-issued laptop away since school was out. I took the laptop and told her I do everything for her, and to lie to me and be disrespectful is not allowed or okay. I walked out of the room and went to put my newborn to sleep. She storms out of the home and I let her, thinking she was blowing off steam, walking outside until I go to walk outside and police are walking to my door. I immediately knew that she had brought them there. They ask for my name, hands on their guns. I say yes, I am her. I'm holding the baby and my phone and I tell them I'm no threat. They inform me my stepdaughter went to the nearby store saying I was repeatedly beating her with the laptop on her head. They said she couldn't show them a bruise because it was in her scalp and she has a lot of thick hair. We're black, FYI. I screamed for my husband to come to the door and tell him his child lied and called the police on me. Long story short, I have cameras in the home and I was able to show the police I never once touched her. I took the laptop and calmly told her how disappointed I was of her and walked away. They were shocked at how calm my tone was and body language, as it was not how she described it. They brought her back since she lied about everything. I told my husband she can't live here anymore. I have 4 other kids who I am the primary parent and financial provider for, and she tried to take all of that away. Come to find out, when searching her laptop, she was Google searching how to put my parents in jail for abuse. 2 weeks prior to this incident, the worker at the store later told us she came in smiling, asking to use someone's phone to call the police. Smiling. But told police she was scared for her life and being abused. I could have been arrested without that video proof and lost my kids and job. My husband sent her to live with his mother, my mother-in-law, who is showering her with love and letting her have freedom. I told my husband she needed some punishment, like community service, and he refuses, saying her only punishment is being kicked out and he just wants to focus on her getting a job and getting her on her feet. Husband says I'm childish for not forgiving her quickly and letting it all go. He's upset I refuse to have my other daughters around her and not wanting a relationship with her. Am I the asshole, or am I overreacting for wanting her to have community service at a place where she volunteers with kids who have real-life problems, and for not wanting the mother-daughter bond with her anymore? Side note, she's called me mom for years and has said I've loved her more and better than her birth mom. I've invested therapy and a lot of my time into her growth. Update, August 2nd, 2024. Still no action from police. Stepdaughter is still with mother-in-law but has a job now. I'm standing firm on not having a relationship with her and keeping my kids far away from her. Husband and I are separated. I'll update again if anything happens. For those questioning me being a bot or fake story, I added my socials to my Reddit homepage. I wish this was a fake story, but it's unfortunately my real life, going the opposite I planned it. I actually think the steps you're taking are perfectly reasonable and completely understandable, and you're definitely not overreacting and your husband's underreacting. And honestly, the fact that he just doesn't seem to understand the consequences and gravity of what happened is just... I'm going to leave it at disappointing. Thank God the cameras came in clutch. My only question, and this is kind of more of a general question, is how do you prevent this from happening with a child? Like, what parenting missteps could have possibly happened to lead them down this road? Or is it just a possibility that there is such a thing as a bad apple and there's really nothing you can do beyond... I don't know. Another one of my fears with being a parent in the future is just the fact alone of, like, what if I fuck up and If a child ends up like this, is it on the parent, or is there just something genuinely, perhaps, wrong with the child? I mean, on one hand, I don't think the stepmother is doing anything wrong. I mean, there's 4 other kids, they all seem to be doing well, they're not a matter of complaint, but the father seems pretty loosey-goosey, and maybe his parenting style is to blame. But I hate even, like, talking about that because, you know, what if I make the same fuck up and I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling right now because it is a genuine fear of mine. I am not reading this user's name. And this is also from a suspended account. Am I overreacting for banning my friend's cousin from our Dungeons & Dragons session after he tried to insert an arranged marriage into the story? Am I choosing this one so I could help push a future episode of RPG horror stories and D&D horror stories? Yes. I host D&D group sessions for my friends almost every weekend. We're all in our 30s, but it's still one of our favorite activities. A few weeks ago, one of our friends decided to bring one of his cousins, also in his 30s, along, and as usual, we welcomed the new player with excitement. At first, he seemed like a really cool player, really helpful with ideas and engaging with the party. The first sessions were great. His backstory was that of a noble, and I decided to make last weekend's turn focus on it. Man, that was a mistake. You see, many of my players have partners in-game. We don't do any graphic scenes, but it's one of the ways I will allow my players to explore the world I create for them. I gave this new player a chance to get one in his backstory, and things went south. When I asked him what his partner would like, he first said he wanted an elf girl that was small and 200 years old. I thought that was interesting, but as he was describing her, things started to get weird. He said he wanted her to have small features, and so far, that was okay. But then he started to use the word childlike. The reason I usually ask for such detailed descriptions is because one of our players is really talented at drawing and likes to draw most of the story's characters, which adds to the immersion. Well, as soon as the player who does the drawing heard the new player saying childlike, she immediately looked at me with concern. I asked the new player if he was serious, and he said he was, and continued the description like everything was fine. Eventually, we had to ask him to stop as we were not going to roll with that. He asked us why, and we said we weren't going to allow him to get a child bride in our role-playing game. He said she wasn't a child, just childlike. We said that wasn't allowed either. He got angry and said child brides were normal back then. I said not in my world. He said my campaign was clearly inspired by Germany. I have some cities that end with Berg. And told me the age of consent in Germany is 14, so I should stop being hateful. We had to end the session after that, awkwardly, but it was already close to the normal time I end the turns anyways. Fast forward to this weekend, and other players have contacted me saying they weren't comfortable playing if this new player was around again. I said I totally understood, and talked to the friend which the new player is a cousin with. He was super embarrassed and said he didn't think his cousin would ever do such a thing. He said his cousin claimed some months ago to be a lolly. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. 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 If you don't know what that word means, don't Google it. You'll be put on a list. But he didn't know what that meant, but now, after looking it up, he said that made sense. Anyway, his cousin, the new player, is not invited for our sessions anymore, and he told us himself that he'd look for a friendly group, since we were too hateful and Puritan for him. I feel like I did the right thing, but I still wonder if banning him straight away was the right move. Yes, it was. The last thing you need in your life is Kendrick Lamar making a diss track on your D&D group, good God. At this point, you may as well just invited Jared from Subway. Hell, with this kind of stuff, Michael Jackson would have even blushed. Hell, I'm sure if given the opportunities, this guy would have probably appeared in the flight logs. Hopefully that's enough wink winks and nudge nudges for you guys to understand kind of what's going on here for those of you who don't know what this wretched word means. Normally, the stories on D&D horror stories are more nuanced to this and involve game mechanics. Sometimes they do end up with shenanigans like this. Hell, one of them involves someone literally killing off the entire party because his Chick-fil-A order was wrong, and there's another one where a youth pastor who was playing D&D gave a very, 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 very detailed description of how he would lure children away from a town, and yeah, turns out he had experience with that. If you've never seen one of the D&D horror story subreddits, then you should definitely give it a look, because it's not just nerd shit, it's actually a lot of fun. And I stopped doing those episodes because people didn't really seem interested in them. But hopefully now that I've stuck this Trojan horse into an Am I Overreacting video, y'all will slowly see the light that is my favorite subreddit. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code Oz at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.